Okay, there's a few things I want to start out with this morning. We just got out for lunch. Eric Parker is on the stand. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone that has shown up inside this courtroom. We filled one half of the courtroom, one half side. I can tell you last time when Eric testified, we had that half side filled many days, and when he was on the stand, that side was filled and half of the other side. So there's one thing that I'm going to say and I'm going to put out there, and we can all pray, but we also have to do work. And I put out a post about lifting others up, and it really worked well. And I think if we try to make that a daily thing, but now I'm going to push it a little bit further. I want you to find someone you don't agree with and try to find one thing that maybe you do agree with that person with. And if we can focus on that, if you can lift someone you don't like up because of standing in the same grounds with that person on one thing. The division that happened between the last trial and this trial, it's been very bad, and it has affected this trial. We went through many of this trial with fewer supporters. I can tell you that it kept me down many days in between, and it wasn't because of this person or that person. It was because of everyone hurting and what we were doing to each other. And if we can't get along together and agree to disagree on things and stand together where we do agree on things, then we are not going to make it through this. It will take all of us to be able to fight through this, and united we stand and divided we fall. So I'm really glad for everyone that has been able to make it down here, and I put this out to you with your prayers today. If you can find one person that maybe you don't agree with and find something that you do agree with that person on and lift up there. And maybe we can find a way to get along and further this movement. So now inside today, Eric Parker's on the stand. We went back in, the judge demolished him. She said, "I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, even though I think you are purposely violating this court order." The prosecution said he should not be allowed to say what he heard, that people in the wash would be shot, that he would not be able to talk about snipers on the mesa, that he could not say that he was afraid that he would be shot or that others would be shot, that he can't bring any of that up because that goes to a legal standing for a defense that is not available to him. He is not available of self-defense or defense of others because they do not see any overreach, any overuse of force by the BLM. So I don't know what constitutes an overuse of force. I would think snipers and helicopters and all of these things and pointing weapons at unarmed people. They say that that's because the people in the wash moved forward when they were told not to, and that they were the aggressors, and so the BLM had every right to point weapons at them. They said that in the courtroom. The judge actually disagreed, and she said that he can testify about what he saw and what he heard. He can provide testimony of what he saw as long as it's not going to a self-defense or defense of others defense, because that would be going to jury nullification. So there's some kind of gray area that we're dancing around upstairs. So he talks about his decision to go to Bunkerville on the 10th, about that showed up late, and that he knew that there were court orders and they were arguing about grazing rights. He is objected to at that point. They can't go into any of that information. Then finally it was your decision to go to Bunkerville to get the cattle back? That's what he can talk about. He can't talk about the First Amendment speech zone, Ammon Bundy being tased, Margaret Houston being thrown to the ground, the police and paramedics refusing to come. He can't talk about Dave Bundy being arrested and beat by multiple BLM agents on the side of the road. All he can say is, no, my decision to go had nothing to do with cattle. He talks about calling the Euclid stockyard and that he was wondering what that was about because he had heard they were rounding up cattle but not selling them off. I know one of the jury questions inside already was if the Cliven was going to be paid for his cattle after they were auctioned off as per, is it the Fifth Amendment? And they took that part off of the question and just asked if he was going to be paid for it. He talked about his plan to go and protest. And he also talked about not knowing Ricky, getting in the vehicle because of a problem with lack of parking space and being able to get down there. The fact that he'd camped next to Ricky and that he really didn't know him or even his name at the time. The fact that he brought his weapon in the vehicle and didn't have it at the stage because he didn't want to leave it in the tent. And he actually was able to bring up the fact that he got his weapon out of the truck because he heard about people up on the mesa. He wasn't allowed to say that they had guns or snipers. He just said people up on the mesa. That was objected to. They then went to enter a piece of evidence showing people on the mesa. That was immediately objected to. The jury didn't get to see it, but they can tell that something's being held from them, and there was a sidebar. We came back, that was sustained. We cannot bring that piece of evidence in. I would be surprised today if we get any piece of evidence in. With how much video, how much photographic evidence there is, we can't get it in. The other day they were talking about they don't know what the diameter of the end of his rifle is, yet they bring that rifle into the courtroom and use it as evidence. They have the rifle here. They could go and measure it easily, but they won't allow that evidence in. So I'm telling you that I will come down here and be shocked and amazed if we get even one piece of evidence in today. So what we're going on is we only have the testimony of Eric Parker, and then hopefully the testimony of Scott Drexler will start Monday. Your prayers are needed, but we also need to work on solving this divide and finding a way to push forward and focus on what we agree upon and not what we differ on, not what we don't agree on, but come together. We have to find our common ground. So that's all I have for right now. We're out to lunch, so hopefully we will come back at the end of the day and Eric will be done testifying, or he will go into Monday.
Can you clarify how the jury is not seeing any of these decisions that are being made?
So all the decisions being made, all the arguments are done outside of the jury's ears. They've brought in a bowl of candy to distract the jury. They play music and they all go to a sidebar. These sidebars last 20 plus minutes. I remember the one day we had more sidebar than we had court. I believe that this is, they do see some of it, but also to them it's like a break time. They get extra break time. They get to chat and communicate with each other. And so I don't know how well it is going over. None of the arguments are going in front of the jury. They don't even get to hear why they are arguing about what piece of evidence. They just called sidebar, and they do all of the arguing outside of the ears of the jury. So what really concerns me here is that the difference from the first trial to this trial. The first trial had truth. There was truth allowed in the courtroom. They put everyone under oath. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Except for on the stand, they're not allowed to tell the truth, and the truth is not coming out. In fact, there's a court order, and the judge even mentioned the court order in the courtroom today, that you're not allowed to bring in the truth. And the difference between last trial and this trial is we had the evidence. They played the videos. They entered evidence. We were allowed to enter our own evidence. Like I said, if I come down at the end of the day and we've even gotten one piece of evidence in, I will be shocked. I don't believe it's going to happen. What they've done this trial is they have thrown everything they possibly can. They stacked the jury. They prevented our defense. They prevented any reason that we can talk about state of mind, the reason that he went. They pretty much took his entire testimony from the last time and broke it down and said, you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't talk about why you went. All you're allowed to get up there and say, yes, I was there, yes, I did that. So he is trying to testify with all of these parameters, and it's got to be frustrating and it's got to be hard. And it's good to see half of a courtroom full for him. But I know that it weighs on him to know that last time he had half a courtroom and half full. And I don't know what to say. What are they going to do next time? If they still get a hung jury in there, what could they possibly do next time? Will it be trial by firing squad? Because I don't see how they could stack it against us any more than they already have. And they are still losing. They are still showing that there is something going on here. So I can pray for all the jury to see that they are not getting the truth. And I can pray for the prosecution to slip up. And I can pray that Eric keeps his ground and is able to get truth out.
People keep on asking the question, where is the defense's evidence?
Where is our evidence? We're not allowed to bring our evidence in. We tried to bring in, we can't even bring in Eric's longbow. We were denied witnesses that the prosecution brought last time. Dennis Michael Lynch proffered his testimony yesterday, and that's not even allowed in the courtroom. They're not allowed to bring that. They're not, and they said, even with all the testimony that was proffered yesterday, they said, well, you can proffer all that, and if there's proof that there was overreach, there was excessive use of force, then you can have the defense of self-defense of others. Even with all those people that proffered yesterday and said there were weapons pointed at me, I was in fear of my life, they are not allowed. She still denied them the self-defense and defense of others defense. So now what they're saying is you can't bring any evidence that goes to self-defense or defense of others. You can't talk about the things that go to self-defense or defense of others. He can't say, I got behind the Jersey barrier because they had snipers pointing rifles at me. He can't say that. So how are you supposed to be able to tell the truth when you are prevented? Even the prosecution's evidence that they brought in last time, they're not bringing in. And the judge, I quote, the judge herself previously in this trial said, when the jury asked, well, when are we going to get to some good evidence? When are we going to see all this evidence? She said, in some court cases, they don't even have any evidence, and you're supposed to remain on testimony alone. She's trying to allude that there isn't all this evidence. Unfortunately for them, the FBI agent comes in and says, well, I timestamp all this stuff based on aerial footage, based on Flynn video, based on Shalakis video, based on all these other videos that they haven't even seen. So I'm hoping that they see through this. But what else can they possibly pull over their eyes? Because whatever they can, they are going to do inside.
Awesome.
That's it.